In Unit 3 in the Indian economy, up till now we have covered the public sector and what role does it play, what is the objective behind setting up public sector enterprises in India. We talked about the problems faced by the public sector enterprises. We talked about the private sector, wherein we talked about the different ways in which we categorize private sector. We understood their role in the Indian economy. We also had a look at the limitations of private sector as far as Indian economy is concerned and the problems that they face. Then we moved on to our discussion on cooperatives, wherein we talked about the cooperatives and what are the different types of cooperatives which are seen in Indian economy. We also talked about the role of cooperative sector and the problems faced by the cooperative sector here in India. Now let us move on to the fourth topic in this unit, the small scale sector enterprises. Fine, many a times you hear the abbreviation SSI, small scale industries. Now what do we mean by a small scale industry? Have a look at this particular picture. Now you can see that in this particular picture, though this worker is using some machines, but this machine is of a relatively crude nature. It is not a very advanced machine. Secondly, you see that the workspace is very congested. There is no particular uniform that this person is wearing, and you look that the workspace is not very neatly kept. Now this is a picture which basically is representative of what is small scale sector as far as the Indian economy is concerned. First thing is, the services are rendered on a very small scale. Whatever is the goods produced in these units or whatever service that they provide to the customers, they do it on a small scale. They have a limited reach, they have a limited number of customers that they can serve. They can only produce a limited quantity. Why? Because they are not relying too much on machines and they are still relying a lot on manpower, right? So they use less manpower and small machines, and because of which the production volumes are also small. And not only this, the production volumes are small, but also they are not able to cater to a large customer base. Many a times these small scale units are run as sole proprietorship or in partnership. Sole proprietor means the owner. So there is one single individual who is running the small scale enterprise. He is the only one who owns the enterprise. Or there could be a number of people coming together, maybe 3 or 4 friends coming together to open up a small scale sector unit. For example, many a times you see 3 or 4 friends coming together to start a restaurant or maybe to start some distribution agency. So many a times we see that the ownership is with one single individual or a group of people working in tandem, working in partnership, right? If you compare it with large scale enterprises, big industries, you would find that the proprietorship is generally with the general public. The stocks are sold to general public also, and there are a number of owners in this sense. Then please understand, many times small scale sector, the ownership and the management is the same. What do we mean by this? The person who is owning the unit, the person who owns the unit, he is also managing the unit. For example, if you talk about a small shop, the retail shop that you have in your neighborhood, the kirana wala or the perchun shop that you have, there you would find that the person who owns that shop is also running and managing the shop. He is also placing the order for various goods. He is also tending to customers. He is also taking care of everything. If he has kept somebody to help him out, some assistant, then he is managing that assistant also. He is providing him meals or providing him monthly salary also. So he is doing all the things. So the ownership and the management lies with the same individual, but this is not the case with large scale enterprises. For example, if you talk about Reliance, the owners may be the normal stockholders while the management is very different from the owners. Now these industries are also labor intensive, which means they rely less on machines and they rely more on human labor. So this is another issue with the small scale sector. Then they have limited reach. Now since they are labor intensive, they are not using machines. And why don't they use machines? Because they do not have the money to finance the purchase of such machines. And In any case, if they are operating in a very small scale, at a very small scale, they do not have sufficient number of customers, so they don't need to produce at a very high rate. So they rely more on workers than on machines. And since they rely more on workers than on machines, the speed of production, the pace of production is less, and they are able to produce less goods, or they are able to serve less number of customers, and that is why their reach remains limited. What are the examples? You can take examples from your daily life also, and from your vicinity. You will find some bakeries over there which are maybe run at a very small scale. There could be beauty parlors which are generally run by women nowadays. We have got the photography studios. You have so many of them here in Pithoragarh. Jai Kali Color Lab, for example, is one example. Then we have got the workshops which repair cars, not only car repair workshops, but we have bike repair workshops also. We have repairing workshops for household consumer durables like television and refrigerator or washing machine also. So these are all examples of small scale enterprises. Food processing units which process food, for example, small units processing apple or burash into juice or maybe jams. So they are examples of small scale enterprises. We have small dhabas which process the potatoes into aloo ka parathas. So they are also examples of food processing units. So in that sense, they're not technically food processing units. Food processing unit is which basically produce jams or squash or juices, or maybe some processed food item like processed milk, curd, paneer, cheese, for example. But a dhaba can also be called a small scale enterprise because it's basically into processing potatoes into parathas. Fine. So they are all examples of small scale sector enterprises. And because there are a number of them, very recently they have been accorded the priority sector status. What do we mean by priority sector? Now these are those sectors which are earmarked for more financing through the banks. So priority sectors are those sectors wherein the government mandates the banks to provide a certain minimum level of loans so that these sectors are adequately financed. One example of a priority sector is agriculture and allied activities. Agriculture, horticulture, pisciculture, these are all priority sectors. So the government has given directions to the banks that at least this much percentage of their overall loans that they give away to customers, a certain percentage of these loans should go to agriculture and allied sector. So this way the government tries to ensure adequate credit flow to priority sector, and small scale enterprises are now also part of the priority sector. So which means the government wants the banks to provide financing to small scale sector units also, and that is why this particular status has been accorded to small scale sector enterprises. Now let us talk about small scale sectors in India, small scale industries in India, right? So earlier we used to categorize these small scale industries in India on the basis of investment that has been made in these units, in the plant. What do we mean by plant here? The factory, the machinery that is there in the factory. So what is the amount of investment in these was used as a scale to decide whether it is a micro enterprise, the smallest ones, the small enterprise, or the medium scale enterprise. So whether it is the micro enterprise or the small or the medium would used to depend on what is the investment in these units. Now have a look at this. For micro enterprises, up to 25 lakhs if it is in the manufacturing sector, and if it is in the service sector, up to rupees 10 lakhs, which means if I've invested rupees 9 lakh in a service sector enterprise, it is basically considered to be a micro enterprise. Fine. Please understand there is a difference between the limits for manufacturing and the limits for the service sector, and please also understand that you would find that the limits for manufacturing sector is always high than those for the service sector enterprises. What is the reason? Please understand, manufacturing sectors are generally capital intensive. They have to purchase machines, they have to purchase the most advanced machinery, so they are more capital intensive, and naturally to purchase these machines you need to invest more, you need to spend more money, and that is why the investment limits have been kept higher for manufacturing sector enterprises. On the other hand, service sector, you do not need too much investment. Let me give an example. Suppose you want to you want to set up an enterprise, set up a service workshop to repair the bikes. Don't you think you'll have to keep a number of machines there? There could be different types of machines that you'll keep. On the other hand, if you want to start a barber shop, right? Do you think you will have to stock a number of machines? Yes, you might be purchasing a few machines, but that would be very few in number, and the value of those machines, the cost of those machines would be much less. So basically in manufacturing sector enterprises, you would find that the investment is more, because the machinery that has to be purchased or the land on which you would start this manufacturing unit, that will have to be purchased, and that will incur a lot of money. So that is why you see that there are limits which are higher for the manufacturing sector than for the service sector. Here it is up to 25 lakhs, 25 to 5 crores. In service it is only 10 to 2 crores, 10 lakhs to 2 crores, 5 to 10 crores for manufacturing sector, for service sector only 2 to 5 crores. So this used to be the case earlier, right? And for this, the government used to rely on self-declaration by the company by the individual who is owning that particular enterprise. So that particular individual would say, okay, I've invested rupees 20 lakh and this is a manufacturing sector unit, so it would be considered part of the micro enterprises. Fine. So this system used to work earlier, but the verification used to entail a lot of cost. Now if the government wants to verify whether the owner who has claimed that he is running a manufacturing sector enterprise and he has purchased equipments worth rupees 20 lakh, is he stating the true facts or is he lying? So for that, the government would have to conduct verification, and that verification used to be a very costly process. It used to require a lot of money to be spent by the government, the verification exercise. So we have done away with these old categorization and we have now come up with the new categorization, but I'll come to that later. Before that, I would like you to know that the different categories, the micro, small and medium categories, I hope you can understand that these are the smallest ones and these are the largest within the small scale industries, and the abbreviation that is used is MSME. MSME is micro, small, medium enterprises. So what do we mean? If I tell you MSME sector, would basically mean that I'm referring to small scale industries in India. Then, as I said, old categorization has been done away with and a new categorization has now been proposed. This has happened only recently, probably last year. And this categorization is on the basis of annual turnover and not on the basis of how much investment has been done in purchasing the land or in purchasing the machinery. It is based on what is the annual turnover. For example, if the turnover is less than 5 crore, be it manufacturing, be it service sector industry, it would be considered a micro enterprise. If the turnover is between 5 to 75 crores, please understand, this would be considered to be small, and if it is more than that and it is less than 250 crore, it would be considered to be a medium scale enterprise. Beyond 250 crore would be a large scale enterprise, right? Now, what is the advantage here? First thing, you don't have to rely on any declaration by the owner of this industry. This can easily be cross-checked from the GST network. Why? Because in the GST network, people would be filing returns, these businesses would be filing returns, and they would be filing returns based on their annual turnover. So whatever return they have filed will give me an idea about the turnover that they have. And so there is no need for any self-declaration by the owner or verification by the government. So in that sense, we do not need to spend for verification in this particular case, wherein now we have proposed a new basis for categorizing the small scale industries in India. Now, second important thing for you to understand is, why do we do this categorization? Naturally, the government would want to provide help to the one which requires this help the most, and which sector would require this help the most? The micro sector. It is the smallest one. So if at all the government has to decide which particular sector to prioritize for the subsidy that it wants to provide to small scale industries in India, then it would probably prioritize the micro sector. Then would come the small, and then would come the medium sector. Fine. So this way the government provides different assistance, different subsidy handholding to these units, and that is why this categorization is very, very important. Fine. Now since we can cross check the turnover from the GST network, now there is no risk of the owner of the enterprise wrongly stating the facts and actually being a small scale enterprise and telling that it is basically a micro enterprise, or actually being a medium scale and telling that it is basically a small scale enterprise now, because we can cross check it from the GST network. No inspection is required. Fine. And absolute transparency is there. So with this we conclude the lecture today. In tomorrow's session that we'll have, we'll talk about small scale sector's role in the Indian economy. Thank you very much.